Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. Today we're going to be looking at the CZ VZ82. Now real quick, I do want to remind everyone that I have started the Instagram page doing that, so if you want to give me a follow over there, I would appreciate it. I also have a Rumble page, and that's basically just kind of a backup for my YouTube channel, just in case YouTube gets crazy and decides to take the channel down. For the most part, it is a mirror image of what my YouTube channel is. However, starting with this particular gun, I did give my Rumble subscribers kind of an early view of this firearm, kind of like an unboxing. And that's something I will probably do in the future, just short little videos, kind of what's going to be coming up. But then save the full-length review for the YouTube channel, and of course put it on Rumble as well. So, moving on, like I said, we're looking at the CZ VZ82. This is an X-Grade that came from AIM Surplus. This was purchased on May 29th, 2023. Now, at the time that I ordered this, the standard grades were going for $380, whereas the X-Grades were going for $280. Now, I do know about a month before I purchased mine, those prices were $350 and $250 respectively, and then after I purchased mine, those prices went back down again. So a little bit of a variance, not big. I don't know if it was just a different batch, or if they've been putting them on sale a bunch, and I just happened to get it when they weren't on sale. Now, looking at the website, that reduced price, it wasn't like marked out and showing a reduction or anything. So there's a good chance these were simply out of different batches. Now, one thing that I did mention in the Rumble video is I was very impressed with the overall finish of this quote-unquote X-Grade CZ82. Now, when I did get this, I hopped on YouTube and just punched in X-Grade from CZ82 AIM Surplus. And I did come across two videos of people that had purchased X-Grade CZ82s that were about a month before my purchase. Now, they did get these ones at the slightly cheaper price, so they saved like 20 bucks. But the examples in these videos were way worse than what I got, which is I was just completely stunned with these. So real quick, the finish on these CZ82s, it's not great. It's kind of like an enamel paint finish. I've got a book, I'll get into that here in a second, that refers to this as a polymer type finish. But it's not good. Very common to see it chip away like that. Not saying that pristine CZ82s are not out there. It's just more often than not, you're going to get one that's pretty beat up, or actually kind of looks worse than the condition it really is, because the finish, once it starts to chip off, it seems like it just gets worse from there. Obviously, it won't be getting better. So, like I said in these videos, the ones that they had were what you would expect of an X-Grade. The finish was very worn. The grips were very worn. I saw a total of 3 examples. One video, the guy had purchased 1. Another video, he had purchased 2. And like I said, those were $20 cheaper, but still, you know, for an extra 20. But I don't know why this was considered an X-Grade. I really have no clue. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, I will say, when I got it, their grip seemed tight, but handling it, I could just feel a little play. I did try to tighten up the grip screw. It was in there pretty stiff. So after a while, I kept feeling something. I'm like, okay, I know something's up, because I do have the CZ83 with the original grips, and they don't have that play in it. So I went ahead and took these grips off. The screws were just caked in there with dirt and grime. And I did discover there's a little lip on the inside of these grips. One of them, a portion of that lip had been completely broken off. On the other panel, it was broken, but kind of still barely hanging on there. So that allowed just a little bit of play. I did put these grips back on, cleaned the screws up, and I was actually able to get the screws down on there a little bit tighter. And the mag does still drop free, so it's not on there super duper tight. And that did fix the play, but these grips are a little bit damaged. Once again, not a big concern for me. I was kind of going into this expecting to have to replace these grips. I will be eventually upgrading the grips on my 83, and the grip panels on that are in pretty good shape, so I can just transfer these over to the 82. They're the exact same grip panels. And actually, now that I've cleaned up the screws and got them on there good and tight, I don't feel any play in these at all whatsoever. So not a big deal for me at all, but you can see this is just in really stinking good shape. I mean, yeah, we have this where here, I was thinking, I mean, just a little bit of marring up there, and then right here, we've got somewhere. Now, if you look closely, it actually looks like the import mark was like double stamped. There's one that's not very deep, and I wonder if that, because I know that's part of the specifications for that import mark. It has to be so deep, and so they like redid it. I don't know if that's why they marked it down to X grade. But like I said, really for an 82, this is really not bad shape. If I were to purchase an 82 and this was listed as like fair to good, and I got this, I would be fine with that. Let alone saving $100 by getting the X grade. So really blown away by that. First time ever purchasing an X-grade from AIM Surplus. A lot of times you will see various firearms they have. They will put up as an X-grade. They have a Beretta 85 BB X-grade I was very tempted to get, but I ended up getting the excellent version instead. Anyways, so the story on this guy, let's back up for a second. What is this? This is Czechoslovakia's answer to the Makarov. It is chambered in 9x18 Makarov. However, it has a double stack magazine. So we do hold 12 plus 1 rounds. And the original Makarov was the single stack. So obviously you can see the grip is a little bit thicker on the 82, but nothing bad at all. It is a double action, single action. The sights are really freaking nice for a surplus pistol. You know, I'm used to just like what you got on the Makarov here, just your standard iron sights there. They have stepped it up on this guy. We got 2 dots in the back, and then kind of a line on the ramped front sight. So pretty stinking nice sights there. The other thing that's pretty interesting about this, if you have the hammer back, you can put the safety on. And that safety is also ambidextrous, which at the time that this came out, early 80s, for a military gun, that was pretty fancy, especially one coming out of the, Soviet Union. Another thing about this has an ambidextrous mag release. Not that it can be swapped out for either side, but it is ambidextrous out of the box. And that's actually a good thing, because this little thumb rest right here is so, you can see how buried that button is. I mean, it is not the standard grip on there. Yeah, that ain't happening. So what I've discovered with this, or rather with my 83, which was the first one I got, I will use I'm right-handed, but I'll use the right side mag release button with my middle finger. This one's a little stiff. Holy cow. Okay, the 83 is easier. Let me just, oh yeah, 83. So, need to clean up that button just a little bit on this guy, but you get the idea. And so it's a good thing that this is ambidextrous, because it's kind of a pain in the butt getting that from the left side. It does have a slide lock. The slide lock is not ambidextrous, however. And as you saw, the mags do drop free. A lot of times they will not. People talk about loosening up the screws some. I think that might be kind of from model 82 to model 82, whether or not the mags will drop free on there. But like I said, a lot of people talk about if you have the grip screws too tight, that will cause it to hang up. It is also worth pointing out, and this gun has been safety checked. Take the safety off. It does not have a mag disconnect safety, which I prefer not to. So like I said, this was Czechoslovakia's answer to the Makarov. At the time, they were using the Model 52, which was a pretty large handgun, also single stack, that was chambered in 7.62 by 25. And then the police forces were using the VZ50, and that was a little guy much smaller than this, and those were chambered in 32 ACP. So both of those were kind of looking to change, and eventually, obviously, the military would have to change to 9x18 Makarov. CZ, this kind of surprised me when I discovered this. Also worth pointing out, I got the bulk of my information of that book I was telling you about. James Brown is known more for just his great music. Obviously, a different James Brown. But this is a really good book. If you see it at a bookstore, it doesn't look that thick. But it has a wealth of information, especially on the CZ VZ50/70 and the 82/83. This is a great book. Found a lot of information there that I did not see online. People always talk about you don't need to buy gun books, you can find it online. I don't buy into that. You'll stumble across stuff in gun books that you didn't even know to look for online. And like I said, I got a lot of information, especially on production numbers and stuff, from that book. Also, Forgotten Weapons, surprise, has a really good video on these. Well, they've got, I think, a few videos on these. But specifically, they've got a video where they have some early prototype versions. And he goes in depth about the evolution of the 82. So that was very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of the 82. So like I said, it did surprise me when I found out CZ originally was working on this gun to be for the commercial market. There was actually no intention for the military or police market. They were wanting to make something that could be exported and that they can make some money off of. Originally, they were chambering it in 32 ACP. And in the late 70s, the Czechoslovakian government kind of caught wind of this, and we're like, well, hey, we need to upgrade our pistols anyways. We want you to make one chambered for 9x18 Makarov. So that's just what they did. Now, like I said, Forgotten Weapons does have a video has one of the early prototypes. Now, the one that he has is actually chambered in 32 ACP. I do not know how early on they did start chambering them in 9x18 Makarov. Like I said, initially it was designed to be 32 ACP, and that is it. But the one prototype, or the one early prototype he has, is chambered in 32 ACP, and some difference. And you look at it and you're like, that's a CZ82. But some differences. One, the slide here, specifically the top, is a little more squared off on that prototype. I think it looks a lot cooler than what we have here. Now, I don't know if they did that to be more cost-effective or if they're needing to reduce the mass of the slide for whatever reason, but that is one change. Also, the prototype example has 2 grip screws rather than the classic CZ single grip screw, which they traditionally only use 1 grip screw, but the prototype did have 2. One real interesting fact is it actually has a squared-off trigger guard. Once again, very early kind of design there for something that's coming out in the early 80s. Especially coming from, not surprising it came out of Czechoslovakia. They're always kind of ahead of the game, but, generally out of the Soviet Union. It is also worth pointing out that in later Model 83s, this is not one of those, but in the later 83s, they would bring back that squared off trigger guard. So that's not really something that they upgraded to the design later on, but rather something they brought back from the original design. So I thought that was very interesting. The other big change is the prototype actually did indeed have a decocker. That's one thing I see people mention about a lot on these, and kind of the only one fault of the CZ82 really is the fact that it has no decocker. Now, unfortunately, it originally was planned to be built with one, but there's issues with the mechanism, so much so that the prototype that Ian has on Forgotten Weapons, the decocker on that one is no longer functional. It is also broken. So once again, something they got rid of. Maybe it was also a question of just bringing down the cost, especially since now they're looking at a military contract. They decided to go ahead and opt out of that. So the original also did have the decocker. Unfortunately, we lost that by the time it went into production. So the CZ82 was designed by, I apologize, gentlemen, Augustin Nikas and Stanislava Strizik. Like I said, the prototypes were first made in 1979. Actually, I don't know if I said that. But the first prototypes were made in 1979. Production began in 1983 at Erskibrod. Which also, might as well point out the little SHE that you see on these. Actually, and this one does not have one. It doesn't have the cross swords. I was thinking it had the Ersky, or the Ersky broad factory mark, but it does not. But the SHE is the abbreviation for the factory in which it was made at. Also, we've got this up, you can see 89. Yep, that means it was made in 1989. And then the cross swords means it was for the military. While we're on that real quick, I know we're getting sidetracked as usual. Obviously, all of your 82s are going to have those cross swords. I do not believe CZ made any of the 82s under contract for another country. Like I said, the 83s were made for commercial use, so you will get a lot of surplus ones that were police use, but maybe not necessarily from Czechoslovakia. This one here I purchased a couple years ago. You can go back and find my video on this. But Classic Firearms got quite a few of these in. So it was a larger batch. They did say they were used police guns. I think I've had people point out in the comments, and also since purchasing this, I've learned a lot about these guns. But you can see there is no cross swords on there. Now, I do know Czechoslovakia did use 82s as police pistols, and they also did use 83s as police pistols. A lot of countries, their police department is part of the military. I have seen 83s that do have the cross swords on there. So that is something they did, at least for some of the police pistols. I don't know if, just the local municipal police, if theirs would have the cross swords on there. But I do know a lot of other countries, their police forces did also use the 83. And obviously those would not have the cross swords on there. So if you have an 83 without cross swords, it might be a Czech police pistol. It might be another country's police pistol, and they did sell them for the general public commercial market. So it might have not been a police pistol at all. There's really no way of knowing. But if you have an 83 that does have the cross swords on there, like this 82, you can rest assured that that was indeed a Czech police pistol. But like I said, the Czechs also used 82s as police pistols, which actually I believe this is a former police rather than military pistol. We'll get into that at the end as to why I think that. Another thing on the cross swords, the mags will also have that little cross sword emblem. Now, interestingly enough, the mag that came with the 83 had the cross sword emblem. You can see the very tip of it, but it's been punched out. So I don't know if that's something that the Czech military started doing later on, showing it's no longer property. I really do not know. I think there are like 2 or 3 basic types of 82 mags. All of the 82 mags I have are the same, so I can't show you any differences. The 82 and the 82 mag will work in your 83 if it is chambered for 9x18 Makarov, or for 380 will not work on the 32 versions. And then if you get a magazine that on the bottom says MFG or manufactured by CZ, throw that puppy in the trash, because that is actually a really crappy knockoff. I've got an old video on those as well. There's no bringing life into those magazines. They're just straight garbage. Okay, so now that we can get off the crossword thing, production began in 1983 in Ersky Broad. I have seen some sources say that it was very slow production, that full production didn't pick up until 1985. And then production did end somewhere between 1990 and 1992 with a total of 189,772 units made. Now, that book I have mentions how between 90 and 92, there are no numbers. There's no serial range. There's no production numbers for those years. So it is kind of a question of, were there any actually made in those years? In 1989, the in production numbers meets the quota for the contract they had for the Czech government. So theoretically, they didn't really need to make any more. So 89 might have been the last year of production. 1992 might have been the last year of production. It's not really 100% for sure on that. Now, they did ended up making a second batch of these for the Czech government in 1994. Now, as far as I know, there have been no examples of those later ones that have been imported into the U.S. There's really not a lot of information out there on the second contract batch that they made in 1994, other than that they made 21,000 units. Now, like I said, this particular one here, based off the serial range number, it was made in late of 89. So it was like, I think, a couple thousand away from being the very last serial number. And that year they made a total of 43,054 just in that 1 year. In 1989 also was the highest production number year as well. So number-wise, there's more 89s out there than any other year. So this might be one of the last 82s made before that second batch. Can't really definitively say. It's not like it'd be in a situation where if I were to get rid of this, I'd throw on an extra charge by saying that, especially because there's not real proof. It's just kind of an unknown. But to me, it's pretty stinking cool. All right, on to page 2. All right, so the chamber, the extractor, and some of the other internal parts are in a beryllium copper plating. And you'll kind of see that's what this kind of gray here is. And that's also another point. There's just a little bit of surface rust on there. So once again, I don't think that qualifies this immediately to be an X-Grade. I haven't even really tried cleaning this gun at all. I've wiped it down. I lightly cleaned the rails and I lubed the rails. That's it. I haven't even cleaned the bore or barrel or anything. So we do have that beryllium copper plating. And other metal parts like the trigger guard here and the trigger, those were just your traditional bluing. And like I said, this coating, the book refers to this as a polymer coating. I would call it a cheap, crappy government coating. For example, your 83s, apparently there were some that did have this same type of military coating. I've never seen one. Typically when you see an 83, the entire gun's actually going to be blued. Much nicer quality finish. And then they did have the satin finish as an option as well. But all of your 82s are going to have this kind of crappy black paint finish on there. One of the big things and unique things about the 82 here is the barrel. It is a polygonal barrel. It's got a 1 in 12 right-hand twist with 6-sided rifling. And the barrel itself is also chrome lined. Now, because of that, in 2007, the ATF actually approved this gun to be purchased with simply a CNR license. Now, a CNR license, a gun has to be so many numbers of years old. And if you have that license, you can purchase the gun online and have it shipped directly to you rather than having it shipped to an FFL where you got to do the background work and pay a fee and all that stuff. I don't know much about that. I know there's a lot of records keeping involved with it. But a lot of people do have that CNR license, and so this is a fairly modern gun that you would be able to purchase with that CNR license. Now, the story on that was a museum had a curator that wanted one of these in for their museum, and I guess they had a CNR license, but not a full-on FFL license, which makes sense if it's a museum. And so he submitted a form to the ATF asking special permission to allow this gun, because this is the first mass-produced gun with a polygonal barrel. It's not the first gun with a polygonal barrel, but it's the first mass-produced one. And so he felt that got extra, special prestige. And surprisingly, the ATF agreed. Like, wow. Wish they did that a lot more often. So if you do have a CNR, you can get one of these 82s delivered directly to you. That does only apply to the 82 and not the 83 variant, as that does not have that mentioned polygonal barrel. Now, why does this have the polygonal barrel? Well, the Czechs, being usually typical different Czechs from every other little satellite country in the Soviet Union, they like to spice things up when it came to their firearms. Now, while they were going to use the 9x18 cartridge, they were going to use their own loading of it. And I believe it was a Cellar and Below design loading, but it was called, surprisingly, the VZ82 cartridge. Now, that had a hotter powder charge in it, and it used a lighter bullet. Also, that bullet had an iron core. Now, the mixture of those, the combinations of those, not sure of 100% of the details, but apparently would cause your standard rifling to wear more. And so that's why they use the polygonal rifling in this. Now, at the same time, this will shoot your standard 9x18 Makarov cartridge just fine without any issues. But that's why they use that barrel. In polygonal rifling, people say, you know, the rifling itself lasts a lot longer or it can't be shot out. I've discovered it's just a heck of a lot easier to clean, which I appreciate. But at the same time, if you get an 83, I mean, CZ makes really high quality barrels, so it shouldn't matter. So let's go ahead and show you real quick. Now, I will say in my original video of the CZ83 here, I'd been wanting an 82 for a long time. I kept missing out on them, and then these popped up. I think originally I was thinking about getting one in 32 ACP. I stewed about it for like a night, and then the next day, all they had available were the 380s. So I was like, well, I guess I'm getting 380. This gun is something I will never let leave my collection again. It is destined to be mine. I purchased this. I enjoyed it. I liked it. But I ended up giving it to my girlfriend at the time. Then a few years later, she gave it back to me. And then I sold it to a buddy of mine. And he always had an agreement that if he was ever going... First of all, if I ever wanted to buy it back from him, he would sell it back to me. You know, no questions asked. If I wanted it back, it was mine. So that was pretty cool. It wasn't something I said he had to do, but when I sold it to him, that's something he presented me with, and I greatly appreciate that. And also, he said if he ever decided that he was going to get rid of it, that he would let me know first before he offered it to anyone else. And that was the situation that happened. And I was like, you know what? I do miss that gun. I regret getting rid of it. So, back into my collection for the second time. You will not ever leave again. Eventually, I'll do a detailed video comparing the 82 and the 83. But my first video for this, I mentioned how the... I think I mentioned the CZ82s have polygonal rifling, but I was implying that this had it too, and that's because I thought it did. I didn't know that much about guns. I was first getting into them. And I remember people saying, you know, oh, they always think the barrels are shot up, but really it's just got polygonal rifling. And then I looked in the barrel of this, and I was just like, well, I guess I don't know nothing because I see rifling. That was because the 83 does not have polygonal rifling. And that includes the 83s that are chambered in 9x18 Makarov. Those do have standard rifling because that VZ82 cartridge was intended only for military use. So, just putting that out there. And then we've got the polygonal rifling. And as you can see, it is just smooth. Which, if you look real closer, it's not completely smooth. There's kind of hard to describe polygonal rifling. But they look smooth. So we'll keep the ugly side out. So, yeah, that's the barrel that these are kind of known for. So throughout the production of the VZ82, they did kind of go through 3 different versions. Now, you had your first original initial version. Total production on those were 51,100 units. The second version would come around in 1985. And from my understanding, the only thing that was changed on those was the grips. So the original grips, you can kind of tell the checkering comes up a little bit higher. Here you can see it's kind of more of a rounded curve. From looking at pictures of those original grips, it's kind of more of a sharper curve right here. Also, they added reinforcement to the inside of these grips because they were prone to cracking. So they add a little more material where the grip screw goes in to help prevent that. And like I said, that was in 1985. And that was really, from my understanding, the only revision done to the second version. And the total production on those was 21,300. Then came about the third version, which is by far the most common version that you're going to see. It is the version that we have here. Production of those began in 1987. Now, some of the differences they did, the original receiver pin was a 2mm solid pin. and that would change to a 3mm roll pin, and that is this pin right here next to the factory marking. You can see that is a roll pin. There we go. Now you can see light coming through. But the original one was a millimeter smaller and a solid pin. The other change they made, I'm getting lost on my notes, guys. I am sorry. Was the mag release button. It went from a checkering to this kind of circular pattern you see there. They also changed the magazine base plate. Originally, these magazines had kind of a thicker aluminum base plate, and they would get rid of that and go to a thinner steel base plate. And then this mainspring housing here / lanyard loop. The original versions were aluminum and had kind of more of a squared off shape to them. And the book references how at least the author suspects that the reason that the original mags had that thicker aluminum base plate was kind of help protect your lanyard loop, since it was aluminum. It wasn't as strong as these later steel ones, and so that's why they originally had that thicker base plate. But they also switched this to a steel design and therefore went to the thinner base plate. I don't know how accurate that is, but I do know they switched from aluminum to steel, and the thickness of the base plate changed, and the overall shape of the lanyard loop changed. And that was it. And total production number on the third version was 117,400 units. And then also recently, the Czech Republic did send 30,000 units to the Ukraine to help with the war over there. Now then, like I said, I did come across this as an X-Grade. Why did I get this? Well, before AIM listed this, or at least before it caught my eye on AIM Surplus, I was poking around on eBay and I came across a unique looking holster that I hadn't really seen before. Now, when I purchased my 83, it did not come with a holster, but I later came across this holster, or maybe it did come with it. Heck, I can't even remember now. But I thought this was very interesting because you normally don't see this type of holster for the 82/83. And I just thought it looked cool. And with this being a possible police pistol, I figured I shouldn't get the original military holster, which looks like this. Get into more of that here in just a second. So I went ahead and snatched this up. I got a review on this, and then I later snatched up a matching mag pouch, because why not? And then all of a sudden, you saw these holsters everywhere. It was pretty common to get one of these holsters when you bought one. So I went from purchasing this because I never saw it, all of a sudden these were just coming in like left and right. So this was the only holster I had for my 83, and at the time I only had the 83. But then I came across this guy on eBay. Here, let me pull up here a little bit. And I thought it looked freaking cool. Because like I said, for the most part, you only see this type of holster. And then lately we are seeing a lot of those. So I was like, well, I've got to get that. And so I did. But then I was like, well, this is obviously a military holster. It looks kind of goofy having a satin finished 83 in there. So, you know, obviously I needed an 82. And if you guys are sitting there going, wait. Did you just buy a gun because of a holster? Yeah, it's America, man. You can do what you want. So, I'm happy I did. I was like, I'll get a cheap beat up X-Grade, and then I got this beautiful thing instead. So, yeah. Works. And there you got your little mag pouch there. It's got both Velcro and a button clasp. And I feel really bad right now because I'm too far in this video to start refilming, but I meant to look up the seller I got these from on eBay. Really good seller, really fast shipping. They came straight out of the Czech Republic. I'm centrally located in the U.S., and I was surprised how quick the shipping was, and pretty stinking affordable too. So obviously you can see this one is used. When I first got it, this was very frayed. It looked like something you'd expect to see at the beach in the 1970s or something. It looked like a bunch of like pubic hair just sticking out of the sides. Trim that off, easy fix. Other than that, it's pretty good shape. You can see a little wear line there. And I think it looks really freaking cool. Started poking around trying to get more information on this, and really I was pulling up nothing. And then I remembered I had that book that I showed you by James Brown. And lo and behold, there's a freaking article on there on this holster. So he does refer to this holster as the VZ95. However, I do not believe that is the correct name. I think that's just kind of the name he gave it. Because VZ95 is this camo pattern the Czech Republic used. So I don't think that's the actual model number. Maybe it is. But I've even come across, since purchasing this, and I'm not going to get it, but it's another CZ82 holster. And it kind of looks a little bit more like this, but it's made out of this nylon material, and it's this camo pattern as well. So, I mean, that looks pretty cool. I do like this, though, because it has the spot for your mag, and it's got the complete enclosure flap. I've got this weird thing where I've got to get the proper surplus holster for any surplus handgun. I never use them. Like, I literally get in the mail, open it up, I'm like, cool, test fit it, and I'm like, neat. And then it goes into literally a duffel case that is full of other holsters, and there it lies for all of time. So yeah, I don't know why I gotta have them, and yet here I bought a freaking gun because of one. Oh well. Anyhow, so that's how I ended up with this holster. If you go on eBay, you can find them. They are definitely out there. So it is used, but at the same time still in very good shape. So I just think this looks freaking cool, and I do think it goes perfectly with this one. However, I've always thought the traditional original holsters for these were pretty awesome, in case you were unaware of them. It's like a handy little utility pouch. It is ambidextrous. You can put the gun in like this, or you can put the gun in like this, so it's right-handed and left-handed. And then on the other side, you would just store your magazine. This does fit. It's just very, there we go. So, and then even in the center section, you could probably put, like, you know, cleaning board or some cleaning supplies or something. But there you go, and then it's just a little concealed pouch. You know, you could wear that and it's not even obvious as a holster, or just, you know, you're going camping or something, you grab this, you got a mag in the gun, a spare mag, some cleaning supplies, maybe some extra rounds, whatever. You got yourself a nice little kit there. Now, I've always liked these holsters, thought they were cool. This is the second version. As you can see, it's got stitching around here, and that is because it's got a reinforced leather strap. Most of the ones I see do not have this extra piece of leather. It's all just kind of the suede side exposed right here. When I purchased these holsters are getting kind of expensive. So like I said, I got this one off of eBay from the same seller as this one. And this was listed as new old stock. Now in the pictures you can see that these sides were caved down. I've been keeping a gun and mag in here trying to fill it out some. Also in the pictures, the whole holster was this kind of lighter tan. And the pictures almost looks pink, like the color of ham or something. And I was like, oh, that's gross. I don't really like that. I like this kind of yellowy color. But for the price of this, is the same price as like a heavily used one that did not have the reinforced flap. They usually get kind of funky right here, like end up curling up. And I know this piece likes to curl in too. And so I was like, well, I might as well get the new old stock one, even though the color is a little weird. I don't know if they just have had this on the shelves for a long time and started to discolor since they took the pictures. If it was lighting or what, but you can see here, you know, clearly the outline, which I'm fine with. I much more prefer this kind of tanner, yellowy, almost orange color compared to ham pink. So I'm happy with that, that it turned out the way it did. So yeah, I had to get the traditional holster, even though I've only got 2 guns, and now I've got 3 holsters, and like I said before, I'll never use. I know, it's stupid, it's a waste of money, but wait, there's more. Oh, and we lost Mike. We'll see if the mic comes back on. Mike is not coming back on, so we might just go off of the phone's microphone here. Okay, the mic might be back on now. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. Okay, so, like I said, but wait, there's more. I mentioned earlier how I believe this was actually a police pistol rather than a military pistol. Now, the reason for saying that, once again, referring back to the Cold War Pistols of Czechoslovakia by James D. Brown. He mentions in there and has a picture of the gun and talks about how the wear is right here. And you will see it specifically worn right here on quite a few of these, including this example. And he mentions that is because the police holster had a little button clasp that was located right here, and that through repeated use, that's why it would chip right there. And I was like, oh, well, that's freaking cool. Now I know which, branch had mine. Was it military or police? And then I was like, wait, there's a police holster? In comes holster number 4 for the 2 guns I have. God, I can't believe I do this crap. So, here's your police holster. Not as cool as the other holsters, kind of very generic looking, no spot for your mag. Once again, new old stock, and this also came from the same guy ordered the traditional holster from, as well as the quote-unquote VZ9 holster, or VZ95 holster from. So, now when I got this was brand new. These creases were not there at all. I had to force these creases, and this gun has been sitting in there. Let me go ahead and decock it. I don't think it matters, but today, right before filming, was the first time I actually finally got it to actually button. Oh my lord. I'm gonna have to do it off camera. Bear with me. We'll see if we can do it again. Oh, so close. I'm determined now. Oh, ow, fingernails. It will button. Alright, everyone watching at home, I need you to start chanting button, button, button. We almost had it. A little louder. Thank you. Holy hell, yeah, that's not sweat at all. I wasn't sweating all over this trying to clasp it. I was. Okay, so, as you can see, it fits, albeit barely. But there's that little button spot, and if the police were having the issues I was having trying to get this on there, no wonder the freaking finish is wearing away right there. But there you go. And as you can see, yeah, that's right about. Let's see where that beaver tail was. You can get an idea of how deep it actually goes in there. Yeah. So that's right where that button is. You can almost kind of see how it's like rounded right there. Right, getting like the upper corner of it. So that's why I bought another holster I'll never use. This one doesn't really have any markings inside. We got something there. We do have a spot for a cleaning rod, which I guess I should point out that the original traditional military one has a spot for the cleaning rod. You can actually put it on either side. These are the marks here. Unfortunately, 1980 something. So we didn't get that. There's your cross swords. We got that mark there. I'm not sure if these mean anything, if these were built in different factories or what. This one, I do not believe, has a spot for your cleaning rod, but I just did discover something. There's an extra little pouch right behind there, behind the mag. So I guess you can put your cleaning rod down in there. It's a pretty wide pouch. That's cool. I literally just discovered that. So anyhow, there you go. One last thing I was going to do. Oh, two last things I was going to do. Trigger pull. I haven't done the freaking trigger pull. So like I said, this has been safety checked. We will do double action first. We'll do an average of 5 trigger pulls. Looking back, I'm really hoping that the mic actually truly connected and the light's not just on and it's muted. That would suck. Okay, so that didn't read anything. Let's try that again. There we go. 5 pounds, 11.6 ounces. 6 pounds, 0.6 ounces. 4.91. 4.9. Am I doing something different here? For 13.7. Like I said, I haven't really cleaned or lubed this other than the rails. 8.1 for an average of 5 pounds, 10.2 ounces on double action. Let's try out this single action here. Woo! 2 pounds, 2 ounces. Ooh. 1 pound, 9 ounces. 2 pounds. Jeez. What was it? 3, 4? We'll do 2 more. I'm almost tempted to get another trigger pull gauge. What do you guys think? Leave a comment, because if you've seen my videos, and these triggers do feel really light. I don't know if I'm just constantly getting lucky or what. All right, that one was a little higher. There's still all of them under 3 pounds. Good Lord, we got an average of 1 pound, 13 ounces, just a little under 2 pounds. I mean, yeah, it's light. It is light. You got a little bit of spongy take up. Not really a brick wall that you hit, but you can tell, you know, it's not going to give anymore. And I feel like it's still a little spongy there. I think you can kind of almost even see that. I feel like we got some travel before the false wall, shall we call it. All right, so I'm on the wall or false wall. Yeah, there's still a fair amount of travel before that hammer actually drops. But it doesn't feel horrible. Double action is just very smooth. Reset. Ooh, did it just reset? Okay, no. Reset's not too far out there, but... And that wasn't a click. I felt a little bit of grime. And yeah, that was the reset, so... Reset's not great, but the trigger pull's wonderful. All right, and so one other thing I've got for you. Don't think it matters. No one's probably interested, but they're all out here. And I got these scales. Just like the cheapest digital calipers I could find on Amazon, I also purchased the cheapest digital scale I could find on Amazon, and the screen has gotten super sticky for some reason. I haven't got any cleaning chemicals on here at all. But other than that, it works. So let's just, I'll eventually have an in-depth video comparing the 82 and the Makarov and the 82 and the 83, but they're all out here. So we might as well measure them. Her 82 is weighing in at 27.9 ounces or 1 pound, 11.9 ounces. And both of these have an empty mag in them. The 83 weighs in at 27.9 ounces. Or, I skipped over it, 1 pound, 11.9 ounces. the Makarov, which also has an empty mag in it. 25.8 ounces, or 1 pound, 9.8 ounces. Holsters. I'm just going to do this in ounces. You guys can convert it later because no one really cares about this. Your traditional pouch holster, 6 ounces even. The, what was this? Zalil Farah, very least Farah holster weighs in at 10 ounces even. Our police holster comes in at 5.5 ounces. And then the stinking holster that really got this video going, the quote-unquote VZ95, comes in at 4.6 ounces. All right, guys, that is it. That's all I've got for you. Oh, the scales almost just slid off the desk. Let's put you over here. So, this is our CZ82 X-Grade from AIM Surplus. I've been kind of purchasing a lot from AIM lately. I used to do a lot through Classic. I've kind of done away with that just from paying extra with them for hand select and getting complete garbage to paying less for what's supposed to be complete garbage and getting like a really nice outcome. Yeah, AIM, I think you just got a little more business for me in the future. So that is it. That is my review on the CZ VZ X-Grade from AIM Surplus 82, plus a whole bunch of holsters. Like I said, guys, check me out on Instagram. Go subscribe to me on Rumble. Thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing. And of course, as always, stay safe and stay shiny.